I was vegan for a long period of time. I'm not vegan anymore.
So you've stopped.
Yeah, I've stopped veganism. I still support veganism. I still support a plant-based diet. However, I do not think when it comes to optimizing your health and performance, a plant-based diet is your best option. Even with supplementation, you can be left with a few deficiencies or insufficiencies, which makes a plant-based diet difficult to recommend if your goal is to optimize your diet for health and performance. But I did follow a vegan diet and I had great success with my vegan diet. I think the strongest I've been, my powerlifting endeavors were all done on a plant-based diet. And I still support veganism.
But what happened? Why did you stop? Where did you feel that you were lacking, that you needed something additional?
So, the pandemic came about, right? And the pandemic hit the fitness industry more than other industries because the gymnasium shut down. And it wasn't so much the gymnasium shutting down which affected me financially. It was the fact that the gym is my outlet.
Yeah.
It's a place I go to exercise. I meet my friends there. And of course, the fitness industry got hit financially as well. So that took a financial, I won't say a financial toll, but when you're used to getting a certain amount of money, making a certain amount of money, and then that you don't make that money anymore, it's not pleasant. That, along with the fact that there's a little fear set in. My mom and dad are doctors, so they have to keep going to the hospital, and I was a little afraid for their health also. I just started doing, I just didn't do as well mentally. And I started getting symptoms of depression and anxiety. Full disclosure, I was diagnosed with clinical depression and anxiety. Sought treatment, took my medication. And then I also thought to myself that I should look at my diet and see if I can optimize some things in my diet to ensure that I'm not as vulnerable to depression and anxiety. And there is something in the literature. There are hints in the literature which claim that plant-based diets are a little more susceptible to depression and anxiety-like symptoms. Now, they haven't been established in an experiment. So these are largely observational studies. But when you're depressed and anxious, you just want to do whatever it takes to get better.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, okay, if I can include maybe some animal products and start feeling better, let me do that. So I started including eggs and I started having some seafood. My whole idea was that, okay, if I'm going to deviate away from my plant-based diet, I would still like to minimize harm as much as possible. But at the end of the day, what is veganism about? It is about minimizing animal suffering.
Yeah.
As far as is practical, minimize suffering. And that is the reason why I still don't consume chickens and cows and goats and pigs.
So is this because of the way they are treated before they are slaughtered? If it was a more humane killing, would you be open to that? Like if you had the experiments done in front of you, you can see where you're buying your chicken from. You can see how well they are treated. Will that maybe change your perception?
It would be far better than how they're treated right now. The animals aren't treated well at all. It's the word suffering does not do justice to what they experience in the slaughterhouse. Having said that, though, killing still constitutes an irrevocable harm.
Yeah.
No animal wants to die. And even if it can be done painlessly, it is a permanent harm to the animal. So I'd still not be comfortable, but I'm not opposed to that reality in the sense I feel that would be a far better outcome than what we see right now. So I'm in support of humane killing.
Yeah.
Because it would be better for the animals as opposed to how they are being treated right now.
But how quickly after you changed your diet did you see the changes coming within you? How much time did it take for it to happen?
I did start feeling better, but I cannot attribute feeling better to just the changes which I made.
Yeah.
Because for 3 years when I was following my vegan diet and the gyms were open and the money was coming in, I was doing well financially and my fitness was up to the mark. and there was no pandemic, I was still feeling good. So I cannot attribute my improvement in mental health to just the shift in the diet. That was one piece of the puzzle amongst a lot of different things which I did to get better. I was obviously seeking therapy, taking my medication, started building a gym for myself so that I can start training regardless of whether the government decides to impose a lockdown tomorrow or not. And there were a lot of steps which were taken. So I think all of them combined helped me feel better. And this was just one little piece of the puzzle, I guess.
Yeah. And also, apart from the exercises, you also focus a lot on the nutritional aspect of it. So can you tell me a bit about, like, you were into veganism, then you stopped. So if someone wants to build, but they are not getting their source of protein from non-veg, how would you recommend that? And you yourself, I think you were lactose intolerant. You still are?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So how do you combat all these challenges?
Right. So just to preface this, I followed a plant-based diet for one reason and one reason only, and that was ethics.
Yeah.
There's no other reason. There's no health benefit to following a plant-based diet. In fact, there are health challenges, or rather optimization challenges, when you get rid of a lot of animal-based foods from your diet. So you're going to either have to supplement with them or very carefully plan your diet to make sure that you don't develop any deficiencies or insufficiencies. So now if someone wants to follow a plant-based diet and they also happen to be lactose intolerant, the reality is that it's going to be difficult for them to meet their protein requirements. There are some sources of protein which people tend to view as sources of protein, but honest to goodness, they aren't. Like legumes, for example, the predominant macronutrient in legumes, most legumes, is carbohydrate. And yes, there's a little protein which comes along with it. But the quality of that protein isn't up to the mark. So that doesn't mean that you don't get any protein from it. It still counts. But it's not the best source of protein out there. And it's most certainly does not compete with the animal sources of protein. We do have protein powder. You've got plant-based protein powders, which people can rely on. I still don't think we are at a stage in technology wherein we can extract plant-based protein powders without some potential downsides or some potential toxins creeping in, which is why I'm not a big fan of plant-based protein powders. In fact, I'm not a big fan of using protein powders in general. I'm more of an advocate of using food, and that's largely because of the quality control issues with protein powders. But you're pretty much then left with protein powder and trying to extract some protein which comes along with the carbohydrate and fat sources in a vegetarian diet. But the good news here is we don't require a lot of protein. A lot of people think we need a lot of protein to build muscle. You don't require much. So as long as you're physically active, as long as you have the ability to consume a lot of food and you supplement your diet with some protein, you should be fine even on a plant-based diet.
And was there any specific amount of proteins you used to calculate in every meal when you were building your, like, what was the number?
Yeah, so I used to aim for about 20 to 30 grams of protein in each meal. And the reason for that is it seems that 20 to 30 grams of protein gives you about 2 to 3 grams of leucine. Now, leucine is an amino acid, and protein is basically a chain of amino acids. Amino acids are basically the building blocks of protein. And this 2 to 3 grams of leucine, which is found in protein, seems to help maximize the muscle building process or muscle protein synthesis. So if you get about 20 to 30 grams of protein, you'll get about 2 to 3 grams of leucine. And you want to space those doses of protein about 3 to 5 hours apart. So that's the whole idea behind consuming 4 meals a day, and more specifically getting 4 boluses of protein, 4 to 5 boluses of protein in the day. So yes, back in the day, I had my diet very carefully planned. Now my goals have changed a bit. I still want to be jacked and fit, but with my other endeavors in business and finance, and I think everyone reaches an age wherein fitness isn't their primary goal anymore. You still want to be physically fit. It's still very important. But food tends to come in the way. So now I still make sure that I get enough protein in the day, but I don't very carefully space out the protein.
Okay.
I still want to change that though, to be honest with you. I still want to challenge myself to continue working and getting my servings of protein in the day as well. But yes, I don't plan my diet as carefully as I used to once upon a time. If someone isn't following any form of restriction, then they can largely meet almost all their nutrition requirements from just food alone, as long as their diet is nutritionally adequate.
Yeah.
You don't need to supplement. Perhaps the only supplement which almost everyone needs to consider is vitamin D.
Vitamin J.
D.
D. Yeah.
D.
The one you get from sunlight.
The one we get from sunlight.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we don't get a lot of sun exposure. And even if we do, we don't get a lot of full body sun exposure.
Yeah.
There are some sources of food as well, but it's best if you don't rely on those and just supplement with vitamin D. It's a very common deficiency. But outside of that, you can pretty much meet all your vitamin and mineral requirements from food alone, provided you aren't following any restrictions per se. If you're going to follow a plant-based diet, a vegetarian diet, then in all likelihood, you're going to have to consume more supplements. And that should be fine.
Yeah.
The mindset which you should have when it comes to supplements is that at the end of the day, our body does not know we're consuming food. It's more interested in deriving the chemical compounds which are present in the food. For example, glucose has a chemical structure. It has a carbon backbone, and we've got hydrogen and oxygen atoms bonded to it. That's a chemical. Protein is a chemical. Fatty acids are chemicals. And food is a way wherein we are able to derive these chemicals in a quote unquote more natural way. But if for whatever reason we are not able to derive all the chemicals or all the compounds we need, we should be open to supplementation, because at the end of the day, whether we derive a certain chemical structure from food or from a supplement, as long as the chemical structure is the same, the body does not know the difference. So that is one way I encourage my clients to consider supplementation if they have that little naturalistic fallacy bias that, oh, I don't want to consume supplements because I want to follow a more natural diet.
Yeah.
So that does tend to come about. But this is one way I've found to address this argument and encourage people to consider supplements too.
And I would say I have a vitamin D deficiency as well, because I hardly go out when it's bright outside. I'm more of a night person. So what would you tell me? Like, how should I get the most out of it? How should I supplement my vitamin D? I have a lot of milk, I have eggs, but apart from that, what else do you think I should have?
The easiest thing you can do is supplement with vitamin D. So the first thing you may want to start with is getting blood work done and identifying the extent of your deficiency or insufficiency. And that is then going to decide whether you should start with a maintenance dose, which you can have every single day. Or if you've got a very severe deficiency or insufficiency, you may want to do a bolus dose once a week for a certain duration of time. And that duration is going to depend on your current levels. If your levels are very low, you may have to do that bolus dose per week for about 8 weeks. If it's an even more severe deficiency, you may have to do it for 12 weeks. Once you get to that sufficiency range, then you should just take a maintenance dose every single day. So that's going to work out to be about 1,000 international units every single day for most people. And it's very easy to get 1,000 international units. You just have to go to the medical store. And there are a few companies which sell you those 1,000 international units gelatin capsules, which you can consume.
But is this an ongoing process after the amount of time, or it has to be a lifelong thing?
It's a lifelong thing. The way you want to think about supplements is it's food in a convenient form factor.
Okay.
As soon as you change that mindset, and as soon as you start looking at a supplement as just something you need, it's healthier to supplement with vitamin D than to develop a vitamin D deficiency.
Yeah.
And because it's not convenient to get vitamin D from sunlight, there are downsides also to, just sun exposure for extended periods of time. Vitamin D supplement should just become part of your diet. It's just something you consume every single day, just like you consume water every single day, just like you have your different meals every single day. Your vitamin D supplement should just become a staple in your diet.